What's that?
Yeah, they're Midwestern.
Joining us now, member of the Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committees and the incoming chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Democratic Congresswoman Karen Bass of California, and it is great to have you on this morning.
Thank you.
We have a lot to get to, but you started with a great question offset. Are we going to still focus on the children at the border who were separated from their families? Yes, we are. We'll start with you. Where do we stand? Are you in touch with lawyers who are working to reunite these families? Do we know how many kids left that we're talking about?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate you for focusing on it. My big concern has always been the kids that were separated, will they ever find their parents again? Will they ever? Especially the parents that were deported. And then the other concern I have, because one issue I've worked on for years, is improving our child welfare system, which is already overburdened because of the opioid crisis. We don't have enough foster homes for those children. And so I know that many of these kids from the border will eventually wind up in foster care. Will they ever find their way home? And you know, you can only be in foster care for a short period of time. After that, parental rights can be terminated. These kids could be adopted and never find their families.
Well, and the hypocrisy of Donald Trump, of all people, suddenly taking a tough line on illegal immigration. There's a story in the New York Times talking about a woman who cleaned his rooms.
Exactly.
Changed the sheets on his bed, fluffed his pillows, dusted his room.
Exactly.
Not only did she work for Donald Trump and clean up for his family, but also people that worked in the Trump organization helped her evade authorities.
She said she was honest about it. She said she was undocumented.
And so he goes from benefiting and profiting from illegal immigrants to suddenly deciding to be the hanging judge, to separate children from their parents.
And you know, the other thing I'm really concerned about are the teenagers that are in these tents, because you know that they had to ramp up so fast. They didn't do background checks on the staff that are working there. And so there have already been cases of molestation and abuse, and you can only imagine that that's going to continue.
This continues. This is still happening right now.
Exactly.
For people who think it's over and they've been fixed because they stopped the policy, there are children's lives, Michael Steele, hanging in the balance right now.
There are, and that is one piece of many big pieces, and you're going to be tackling a big piece today with James Comey coming in to sit down in a closed-door hearing. One, what is your expectation there? And two, what safeguards will the public have that we're going to actually know what transpired in this hearing?
Well, the safeguards that I think the public will have is that there is a commitment, which is why he agreed to testify. There is a commitment that we'll get a transcript within 24 hours.
Why won't the Republicans allow cameras to go there? Why won't the Republicans allow Americans to see this hearing?
Because I don't think that they want the public to see the theater that's going to take place. Now, I've been there in the previous closed hearings, and it is theater. And I think, frankly, they're a little embarrassed because they know the clock is running out. They also know that they've provided virtually no oversight over this administration, which I believe is going to change next month. And so this is their last hurrah.
So what do you expect to happen at the hearing?
Not much, to be honest with you. I expect for my Republican colleagues to grill him over and over and over again about the same subjects. I know they're interested in Hillary's emails and what else they can investigate and go along that direction. But I really don't expect much. And I do think that's the other reason why they don't really want the public to see, because there's not going to be much substance there, and I think it'll be easy to see through.
Your Republican friends have turned James Comey into a straw man. Do they? Have you ever asked them off the record, back in the cloakroom, have you ever asked them if they understand that James Comey actually helped elect Donald Trump with that letter, with that press conference that violated every norm of past FBI behavior? He helped elect Donald Trump.
Exactly. No, you know what? I haven't asked them specifically that, but I will tell you, and I know you know this, when you talk to them off the record, many of his tweets, many of his positions, they're embarrassed by, and also they feel unstable because they don't know what direction he's going to go in.
Did he ever finish his tweet this morning? I mean, he left it with a ...
I'm sure there's
more coming.
More to come.
Bye.
Congressman, can I ask you a question? You're going to be sitting on this incredibly powerful committee, and you will be in the majority in January. There's so much that you could theoretically look into, but there's only so much bandwidth that a committee has.
Right.
how do you go about prioritizing, and what do you think should be maybe, let's say, the top 3 things that the Judiciary Committee could be focusing on in the year ahead?
Well, I think number one is basic oversight, because oversight has
Sure,
not been
but within
provided.
that umbrella, what would you prioritize as issues specifically?
Well, I mean, if myself, it
Yeah.
would certainly be looking at voting fraud. I mean, all of the concern about voting fraud in this last election, where were the 2 places where there was major voting fraud going on? North Carolina, what happened in Georgia. Restoration of the Voting Rights Act is certainly something that is very high on our agenda. So I do think that there's a lot of things we want to do. Criminal justice reform. My own focus personally on criminal justice reform is going to be on gender, because when you talk about criminal justice reform, it's often about men, and the situation with women is completely different. Why women get involved, what happens when they're there, and what happens when they return to their communities.
Congresswoman Karen Bass, thank you very much. Come back
Thank
on
you,
the show.
Congresswoman.
Absolutely.
Great to talk
Thank
to you.
you. Love to come
Coming
back.
up right now, the president is in the middle of another Twitter meltdown over the Mueller probe. He's literally left everyone hanging.
Bye, bye, bye.
4 tweets so far and counting. We'll try to keep up with that. And the Russia investigation may not be the only challenge to Trump's presidency. CNBC's John Harwood joins us to talk about that. Plus, former CIA Director John Brennan joins us here on set. Morning Joe is back in a moment.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.